My name is Peggy, and I'm an actor. Not him. Me. That's right. You might think being in a movie is glamorous, but us animals, we didn't sign up for this. Many times it's been hard, or scary, or painful, and has even killed us. Now, it hasn't been all bad.
I think the American Humane is a very important person on the set. They're actually, to me, quite vital.
But it's complicated.
The group is responsible for this BS that you see at the end of movie credits.
Oh my God.
To really understand animal acting, we have to go back to when this dog saved Warner Brothers.
He was a real dog who had an extraordinary life. He was a puppy born on a battlefield in World War I who survived the bombing of a kennel. After the war had ended, Lee came up with this idea that he would try to get the dog in the movie.
How does he get Rin Tin Tin's paw in the door?
So Lee literally took the dog, screenplay under one arm, dog's leash in the other, walked up and down Sunset Boulevard, knocking on doors and saying, I've got this terrific dog. I also have the screenplay. Give us a shot.
At the time, movies were silent, and I guess humans weren't that interesting because Warner Brothers was on the verge of bankruptcy. So, they gave Rin Tin Tin a shot. And the public's reaction?
I like animals more than people.
He became a superstar.
He was probably the most profitable star Warner Brothers had. Every time they got into trouble, they would release a Rin Tin Tin film and bail themselves out. He had an incredibly expressive face. If you see any of the old movies or even the photographs, he manages to convey something very intelligent and very profound.
But like most silent-era stars, he didn't transition to sound.
When talkies came in, he was fired.
Warner Brothers sent Lee a letter saying, we won't be needing Rin Tin Tin's services anymore because, as everyone knows, dogs don't talk.
But Rin Tin Tin set the stage for countless other animals to be in movies, and not in a good way. When the newly formed MGM began production on Ben-Hur, they needed horses.
They've filled the screen in countless cowboy films since motion pictures began, but horses were expendable, and they were often expended.
Over 100 horses were killed during filming, mostly due to the running W, a hidden wire attached to the horse's legs, meant to trip them in action scenes.
It looks like a running W here, but I say that purely on the basis that as this team this side comes across and comes out of shot, the team behind comes to an immediate stop very, very quickly.
According to some reports, director Breezy Eason allegedly ordered injured horses to be shot on the spot, saying, if it limps, shoot it. And the cruel fate for horse actors didn't stop there. In this film, 125 horses were tripwired. Of those, 25 were killed outright or had to be put down afterward. The film not only drew public backlash, but the lead actor was so outraged by the cruelty that he physically attacked the director. And while the running W would persist on film sets, the use of horses would become even more extreme.
Hold tight, Jesse, because there's only one way out of here.
Even Hollywood overreached itself when, for a spectacular sequence in the film Jesse James in 1939, it sent a horse to its death over a cliff.
Yeah.
The stuntman and the replacement horses survived. The horse that fell, shot from 2 different angles, didn't.
In that same year, other animals would suffer a similar fate.
Well, it's a pretty shocking movie even today. I mean, imagine, you have this kind of light, satirical, social comedy, and then you suddenly have these rabbits and birds getting killed rather graphically. And then I think when a picture mixes with such extraordinary, going from comedy to tragedy, going from a party sequence to somebody getting shot and killed. Just, it's a lot for an audience to take.
Notice how the sentiment wasn't, wow, those murders were shocking, period. It was, those murders were shocking, given the genre. But thankfully, one group of people felt differently.
American Humane Association and Hollywood have a very long relationship.
The mandate of the AHA, which would later be known as American Humane, and don't worry, we'll get to this, was ensuring the welfare of animals.
It started as early as 1924, but the formal relationship really was triggered by the 1939 film Jesse James. But American Humane led a national outcry, and we were allowed to be on the movie sets to ensure that the animals were treated humanely.
In spite of the AHA's formal guidelines and on-set supervision, for reasons we'll discuss in a minute, the abuse would actually continue. A lot. This production used real lizards, dressing them up with fake horns and fins. They also forced the lizards to fight on camera, which went against the AHA guidelines. Cases of mistreatment persisted, not because the AHA didn't care, they were actually quite effective. For example, in the adaptation of Ben-Hur, unlike the original, not a single horse was injured. They persisted because of certain loopholes. For example, tranquilizers were permitted to be used, as long as it was done by a licensed veterinarian, as long as the veterinarian stayed present. Also common was the overseas loophole. This French production slaughtered a pig and a goose on film, but the AHA had no jurisdiction over European films. Same for this Japanese production, which was infamous for placing animals in perilous situations. If you watch a lot of movies, you've probably seen this before. The phrase first appeared in the end credits of the Doberman Gang, and set a precedent for future films. But that same year revealed a different loophole, when a chicken was crushed to death on the set of John Waters' Pink Flamingos. Waters got around AHA oversight, because his film was an independent production.
Animal rights activists always say to me, how could you kill a chicken for a movie? Well, I eat chicken, and I know the chicken didn't land on my plate from a heart attack. We bought the chicken from a farmer who advertised freshly killed chicken. I think we made the chicken's life better. Got to be in a movie, got and then right after filming the next take, the cast ate the chicken.
When I came across this clip in my research, I assumed Waters was joking, until I fact-checked it. Not only is it true, but it's beyond bizarre. Pause and find out at your own peril. While Pink Flamingos was more of a cult film, audiences would discover that animal slaughter wasn't beyond one of the most successful directors of all time. During this scene in Apocalypse Now, a water buffalo was killed after being struck multiple times with machetes, and Coppola didn't exactly become tame in the coming years.
I know that the horse head in Godfather was a real horse head, and the water buffalo sequence in Apocalypse Now was a real slaughter. That would never happen today in movies.
Yes, it could.
You could do that.
Yeah, because I didn't kill the horse and I didn't kill the water buffalo.
The horse head was purchased from a pet food plant in Jersey, so no one on the production crew was involved. And as far as the buffalo, these were not actors.
It was the time of the year, sort of like to the Ifugao people, who are the people there in the Philippines, where they slaughter a water buffalo. And it's sort of like Thanksgiving. All the old people, the children are there, and they're all smiling because it represents a feast. So we shot that on the night that we knew was going to be the slaughter of the water buffalo. We're just going to observe it with them.
These instances weren't exactly black and white, but at least in the following year, cinema took what felt like a step backward?
According to the American Humane Association, at least 4, maybe 5 horses were killed during the making of Heaven's Gate. In the most serious incident, a horse was actually dynamited to death. The Humane Association rejects the film company's claim that the horse's death was an accident. It was, they say, blown up deliberately.
What happened during Heaven's Gate?
We're in a circle like the cowboys and Indians. In this case, it was the cowboys and the immigrants. And of course, the charges are put into the ground. And the first take, I finally got on my horse, but the horse is going crazy. It's a little hard to get on a horse, and it panicking like that. And the scene was I was to ride out, shooting both barrels according to the script, and then Chris Christopherson is to blow me out of the saddle. The second take, I couldn't get on the horse quick enough. I straddled 3 charges, and the whole horse and myself was blown into the air. The saddle came off. I went one direction. The horse went the other one, and of course the horse took all the blast in his stomach and went into shock. And they had to put it to sleep the next morning.
Was it an accident?
Who knows? You know, I mean, I don't know who pushes the buttons. Whoever pushed the buttons knew where I was. But I was blown up. I know that.
Carmelita Pope says more cruelty was inflicted on animals during its making than in any film to come out of Hollywood in decades.
When we went to tell the board that cruelty was still going on, they didn't believe me. They said, how could it be? You know, your people are always there. And I said, look, here are the films where animals have been cruelly treated, especially Heaven's Gate, where Cimino actually bled horses and steer from the neck to collect the blood to put on the actors so that the actors had real blood on them when they were shot instead of stage blood. They degutted steer so that when actors were shot, the guts that fell out of their vests would be the real innards of the animals coming out. The steer and the horses weren't enough blood, so they finally started to chop the heads off of chickens, turn them upside down, have them bleed into plastic bags, and that blood was saved to smear on the actors.
So how did all this get by the AHA? It has to do with this. The Hays Code. Strict rules studios needed to follow in order to release their movies in theaters, and this included AHA guidelines. But when the Hays Code was scrapped in 1968 in favor of the MPAA rating system, rated G, PG-13, etc., the AHA lost most of its leverage, giving filmmakers more free rein to do what they want. And they did. In 1980, Cannibal Holocaust showed a monkey, a pig, a coati, and a sea turtle all killed on camera.
Men in the movie, my crew, talk with the television. They say, yes, Gerald Deodato is a really killer. I showed the movie to Sergio Leone. Sergio Leone said, it's very fantastic. The second part of the movie is very nice. Maybe you have many problems for that.
But problems wouldn't turn into true consequences for humans until the following year, and not in the way you might think.
And you gotta watch out for beer, okay?
It may have been the most dangerous movie production ever.
Roar was so dangerous because nobody had ever attempted to have 150 lions and tigers and leopards and cougars in close proximity without trainers.
I can't imagine what the script must have looked like, because every time somebody starts to deliver a lion attacks them.
Typically, the rule is that you have to have 2 trainers for every lion. That would mean we'd need 300 trainers. There just weren't that many people that were willing to do this.
Cast and crew worked with more than 100 wild animals, including lions, tigers, leopards, and elephants that they raised themselves.
On the first day of filming, director Noel Marshall was the first to be attacked.
There's the big lion fight. Full-grown male lions are fighting each other, and he runs in to break up the fight, and then a lion bites him through the hand.
Through the hand.
Through the hand, and then he, if you watch really closely, you can see he goes like this and shakes the blood off and shakes, and then he goes in and he breaks up the fight again.
Melanie Griffith was attacked twice.
This is the scene where Melanie is on the kitchen floor with Boomer.
The lion grabbed her hair with its teeth and wouldn't let go.
No!
Griffith was clawed in the face, requiring over 100 stitches and reconstructive surgery.
In total, over 70 people were injured during production, and miraculously, there were 0 deaths.
Be assured that no animals were harmed in the making of this movie, but the same can't be said for the humans.
No animals were intentionally harmed, but they were harmed nonetheless. A dam was constructed by the production, and then burst. The flood killed several lions and tigers. One of the lions managed to escape during the chaos, but was then tracked and put down by the police. The 80s were off to a bad start that would get worse. According to the AHA's on-set representative for Rambo, rats were squeezed and hurled against a wall, killed and burned by an actor, while the director and crew laughed. The film was deemed unacceptable by the organization, yet everyone still went to see it in theaters. The problem is not many moviegoers would stand up and say, "Hey, wait, this movie is missing the no animals were harmed certification. I'm walking out," especially when they already watched the whole movie.
You've seen the film, now for the real story. The one without Hollywood's happy ending. In real life, Willie is named Keiko and lives in an aquarium in Mexico. The pool is cruelly small and Keiko is dying. For most of his 10 years in this tank, the water has been far too hot and polluted from his own excrement. The dorsal fin that stands proud with whales in the wild flops sadly. What do you think are Keiko's prospects?
He'll die. He'll die there eventually. I can't give you a date on when he'll die, but he'll die.
After public outrage at the mistreatment, it prompted action to be taken.
The story of a badly treated killer whale and the street kid who helped it escape from a marine park.
That's when Warner Brothers got involved.
Late in the shooting, Dick Donner approached me and said, "Hey Tim, we got to do something about this animal."
The effort to free the actual Willie was on.
And I said to Dick, are you aware of the magnitude of trying to do something? This isn't like a dog you put in a container kennel and send him home. This is a big deal, trying to do something about this whale. And he said, yeah, go for it. And I really respected Dick for that.
It was a grand experiment, the release of a captive killer whale, taken home to Iceland after so many years in an aquarium.
After Keiko was released into Icelandic waters in 2002, he never fully integrated with other whales, actually preferring humans, and ultimately died of pneumonia only a year after his release. By the 21st century, you'd think things would be different, but the ineffectiveness of the AHA's certification system would continue to receive scrutiny.
No animals were harmed? Guess again. American Humane provides welfare certifications for companies that exploit animals for profit. That no animal was harmed certification at the end of the credits, it's meaningless.
The problem was that the certification only covered filming days attended by its reps, meaning abuse outside those periods often went unnoticed. That and the failure to close the foreign loophole.
자, 나왔습니다. 산 거 맞죠? 이제 잘라도 될까요?
Yeah, that's a live octopus. Lead actor Choi Min-sik had to do 4 different takes with 4 different octopuses just to get the scene right. And marine life casualties didn't stop there. Tons occurred during the filming of these scenes. According to reports, dozens of dead fish and squid were seen washing up on shore for 4 days following the shoot. The 2000s incurred more incidents, but in 2011, when one of the most famous directors of all time blew up horses for his film, he actually did it without harming a single one.
I'm actually amazed at how much Steven Spielberg actually honestly cares about animals. He watches everything they do and is so appreciative when someone else takes a little bit of concern for them too.
The thing that I kept emphasizing from the very outset was that the horses have to be safe, not even a scratch. Didn't want that sort of Damocles hanging over my head for the rest of my life because I love horses.
Spielberg had real horse actors, yet he utilized CGI for the explosions, which begs the question, why did he need actual horses? Why not just create it all with CGI?
There were times in the movie when I wouldn't even tell the horses what to do, and they'd be in a scene and they would be reacting in the scene in ways I couldn't imagine a horse would be able to react or act.
As much as it was a positive thing for such a high-profile director to be doing right by animals, as we'll soon see, his reputation in this area wouldn't last. Meanwhile, not all uses of CGI on animals have a happy ending.
Did you know they nearly killed the tiger while they were filming the movie Life of Pi?
An anonymous whistleblower leaked emails from the film's production, revealing that one of the tiger actors almost drowned on set.
On the one side, you have this animal rights group, American Humane Association. These are the folks who give that stamp of approval to movies that you don't hurt animals. On the other side, you have this expose, and it says that the AHA approval doesn't mean that much anymore because animals are dying on movie sets and that they're simply looking the other way.
It's something that actually is a kind of a dirty, dark secret in Hollywood, but just about anybody who works in the industry knows that there's virtually no real meaningful protection for animals in the movies. What the American Humane Association seems to believe is abuse, and I don't mean this sarcastically, is basically if somebody intentionally tries to kill an animal on the set. Anything where an animal is killed accidentally or it's short of being killed, like the Tiger King in Pi, and they don't count that as an animal being harmed.
The leak also exposed a clear conflict of interest between the AHA and the studio.
There's an AHA person on set supposed to monitor all this stuff, who was incidentally allegedly sleeping with one of the producers, so there was a little, clouding of the waters.
The very first thing I noticed when I worked with them was that their offices were owned, operated, and paid for by the industry.
Bureaucracy should never, ever get cozy with the industry it's supposed to monitor. It's hard to police and punish your friends. There's a tendency to look the other way.
It's like the psychiatrist who prescribes addictive drugs after receiving an education to do so that was funded by Big Pharma. And these decades-long industry ties prove difficult to break, even in modern times.
This is the Puatahanui farm north of Wellington, where animals used during filming for the Hobbit films were looked after. But now there are allegations that care wasn't. PETA says it has received 3 separate reports from animal wranglers and claims that 27 animals died as a result of mistreatment on the farm, including 3 horses, a dozen chickens, sheep, and goats.
Since the farm was overseas, the AHA, again, had no jurisdiction.
In a statement, Sir Peter Jackson says the Hobbit production takes animal welfare very seriously, and he rejects accusations that 27 animals died because of mistreatment.
This is technically correct. The mistreatment didn't involve anyone on set. The animals' living conditions just weren't up to par. Moments like this are incredibly easy for the public to turn a blind eye to. That is, until they actually see one of them for themselves.
Well, he ain't gonna calm down until he goes in the water. Oh, here he goes. Oh no!
After a video was leaked from the movie set, a lot of folks are upset about this, and in fact, they're calling for a boycott of the movie.
This is produced by Amblin Entertainment, which is Steven Spielberg's company.
It is.
Do you think he could possibly face some blowback on this?
This is a man who has spent his life making family movies, feel-good movies. He does not want anything to be a drag on that. This is the last thing they need. Their premiere was canceled this weekend. Their press junket, where they get all kinds of free publicity, was canceled this weekend. This is not good for this film at all.
It was now clear to everyone that something had to change.
I think for the industry, I mean, in a world now where you have computer-generated graphics, where in a movie like The Life of Pi, the tiger that was on the raft was almost entirely generated by a computer. When you have a film like The Revenant, where there was no real bear in that movie, the question has to be asked, do you need dogs or any other kind of animal in peril in scenes like this when you can probably generate it via computer?
Digital isn't always the answer. Authenticity matters more than ever today. But it's difficult to achieve with CGI.
Striking that balance between staying true to the original film and creating a hyper-realistically animated Lion King for a new audience was a particularly tough challenge, and it required literally millions of hours of animating.
While technology is frowned upon, should it be used if it can avoid risking animals' safety? Our safety. Yeah, I'm still here. Honestly, us animals have contributed authentically to countless classic movies where we didn't get hurt. In fact, on set, we get the best medical care, tons of positive reinforcement, financial support for our future care, and even get to play. In any big industry, especially Hollywood, there's always going to be bad actors. And yes, they should be held accountable. But as much as things aren't perfect, and we've had a rough history, so long as people are aware, I think it's safe to acknowledge we've come a long way. I'm Adam, this is ScreenPuff. If you found this insightful, check out this next video. And as always, thank you for watching.